Adriana. It's really nice to meet you and everybody here. We were really, Kim and I were really excited to be a part of this today, and we had a really great time last summer. Both of us work at the University of Calgary Archives and Special Collections, and Javier was one of our researchers last summer, and he did quite extensive research in our archives. So when he talked to us about joining for this meeting, we were pretty excited to talk about the collections that we have and how they're open for research. We want more people to come and use them, so we're really excited. And also Adriana, who's done very extensive research in our archives. So Kim and I were actually joking about how she probably knows more about our collections than we do. So and I'll just gonna, there we go. So before I get started, I just want to take a quick opportunity to acknowledge that the University of Calgary is situated on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 nations in Southern Alberta. So, and the city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, districts 5 and 6. So we're gonna talk, Kim and I have a very short presentation, so we're gonna just talk a little bit about the University of Calgary Archives and Special Collections, and some of the collections that really touch on the Italian presence in Southern Alberta. And then we're going to talk also about how to access those collections and how you can use them yourself. So the University of Calgary Archives and Special Collections, we're a pretty large institutional repository here in Alberta. And we've grown quite a bit in the last 5 to 6 years. So we have over 12 kilometers of archives, archival material here, as well as over 260,000 unique and rare book items, and located across 5 repositories that have all been very recently centralized. So we're all, they're all located in one spot, and they all can be accessed from the same reading room here at the University of Calgary Taylor Family Digital Library. So our 5 repositories, so our special collections, which has archives and books, and mainly those collections are related to the history of Canadian music and Canadian literature. That's kind of where that repository is very strong in. We also have the University Archives here, which really focuses on scholarship of the university, professorial papers, governance documents related to the university, that type of thing. And then we also have the Canadian Architectural Archives, which is a really, I think it's a very extensive archive related to Canadian architectural documentation. So we have the papers of many of Canada's prominent architects, including Douglas Cardinal, Arthur Erickson. So these are used extensively by not only architects and students here at the university, but also researchers from across Canada, as well as internationally. And then we also have the Military Museum, Library and Archives. So we have a really extensive, military archival collection, and we actually have a separate point of access for that, which is located at the military museums, kind of just it's about a 10-minute drive from the university. It's very close by, and actually our archivist for that collection, he works here on site at the Taylor Family Digital Libraries as well. So we do a lot of reference work for that collection here at the Taylor Family Digital Library. So if you're into military history, it's a really cool, that's a very cool collection to check out. And then our largest repository, which came to Archives and Special Collections in 2019, is the Glenbow Library and Archives. So that came in 2019 with the rejigging of the Glenbow Museum in downtown Calgary. So they're kind of rebranding as an art institution. And so they were looking for a home for their archival collections, and the University of Calgary was brought in to take the Glenbow Archives on a 99-year loan. So we have the Glenbow Archives, which is 5 kilometers of material. That came in 2019. It essentially doubled our holdings here at the University of Calgary. So it really took us from a repository of 5 kilometers to 10 kilometers, and now we're just over 12 kilometers. So as you can tell, we've like grown quite a bit in the last 5 years, quite extensively. And with that also came the building of a brand new reading room. So our reading room is called the Glenbow Western Research Center, kind of named after the project of bringing the Glenbow Archives here. And it's a really like wonderful place where researchers come to do research, and Javier spent quite a bit of time there. So yeah, and you're always welcome to come and visit. So we definitely encourage you to do so. I'll just talk very briefly before Kim's going to talk a bit about collection highlights related to the Italian presence in the Glenbow Archives. But I'll talk just like maybe just generally about kind of where the Glenbow's focus was with their archives. So the Glenbow's focus was, they really did a good job of collecting documentation related to the colonization of Western Canada, and particularly as it relates to Southern Alberta. And like some of the areas where they really like did well in was especially in industry and the economic activities of Southern Alberta. So we have a lot of collections in our Glenbow archives related to the Canadian Pacific Railway, the ranching and meat packing industries in Southern Alberta, agriculture, including the wheat industry, forestry and irrigation, construction in the cities, and also mining. So mining was a big industry in Southern Alberta. It still is actually. The documentation in the Glenbow Library and Archives really kind of focuses in and around like the Crow's Nest Pass areas, where Javier was really focused in his research, as well as we do have documentation related to other mines in Southern Alberta, as well as the Drumheller Valley. And so all of these industries were sort of the economic force that brought a lot of European immigrants to Southern Alberta, including like British, Slovakian, German, French, Belgian, Russian, and Italian. So these were really important industries where people came to work. So we're really lucky to have these collections here. And they really they not only tell the story of, you know, how these businesses and industries operated, but they also tell the stories of the people who work there. So yeah, we're really lucky to have them and have people doing really cool research with them. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Kim, who will talk a little bit about our collection highlights.
Thanks, Lelland, and thank you, Adriana and Abro. We're really excited to be here and for Javier for extending that invitation to us. Lelland did a great job setting me up for our collection highlights. So as she said, yeah, like the Glenbow Archives, you know, as they were growing and building, they did kind of try and set themselves up as something similar to a provincial archives for Southern Alberta. And it was very often, you know, kind of, you know, on the side referred to as, you know, the Provincial Archives South. And it does highlight a lot of the people and the industries and things that were building Alberta at that time. So I wanted to talk about, you know, the personal collections like the Pocaterras, who were living in Alberta, who were, you know, singing and their lives coming to Canada, their diaries, and their lives about, you know, reminiscences, their speeches, their interviews. I think one of the most beautiful parts of these collections are people's personal stories, those diaries that you see. It's a really interesting, like, personal story. And we have a lot of these. This is the Pocaterras are probably the most well-known Italian family that we have their diaries for, but there are other pockets of it. This also reflects in the special collections where we have like those books by Jennifer Hamlin and David Finch who are writing these books and they come into the library. So we have those secondary resources as well that are all open for people to research as well. So we do, I mean, we love the primary research. We love having researchers in. We love having people who come in for months and bond with us and, you know, we can share stories, but we do offer, you know, both primary and secondary resources. We have the Calgary Italian Oral History, which is a collection of oral histories that were taken in 1985 to talk about communities, the Italian community specifically in Calgary. So this collection is not fully digitized, so it does take a little bit of work on our end to get them to you, but you can listen to these tapes. Um, right now they are on cassettes, and we do worry about playing them in the reading room, so we do send them to our digitization team first to make sure that, you know, they don't get damaged in the reading room. I recently learned that during the 70s and 80s, there was a type of plastic that was used to make cassettes that often just kind of implode now when you play them. So we don't want that to happen to anybody in the reading room, which is why we appreciate, you know, that this does take time and people's patience with us while we get those ready to go. As Lelland mentioned, there's a lot of like industry, the CPR, the Western Canadian Collieries, the mine workers that are full of ledgers and personnel files and stories of Italian workers who are coming and doing. And I don't want to step too much on Javi's toes because I know that you went really deep into some of these collections and that you'll be sharing your stories. Um, but I think it's an interesting way that we can kind of think about how else we access this material, how else we come into it. It doesn't have to be a personal story like the Pocaterras and their diaries. It can be coming through a different lens, and just to kind of think about how we do our research and how we come in and access this material. And I will also include that we do, through the military museums, have this World War I propaganda collection, which is super cool. I recently got to explore a little bit of it. So it is taking it outside of Southern Alberta. That collection is coming from Italy. It was purchased by the military museums as part of their work in collecting the history of military history. So just to kind of show that, I mean, most of this is coming from the Glenbow, and that is how they set themselves up. But all of the repositories that you can access through the University of Calgary do kind of share these stories about Italians in Canada and around the world, and how that affects and how they're all kind of interlinked. Um,
Oh, there we go. Sorry. I have 3 screens going, so it's finding sometimes my mouse doesn't want to go to the right one. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about our where to find and access our finding aids and digital collection. So probably all of you are wondering, like, how do I find out more information about, like, where to find information about these collections? How do I access them? So we have all of our finding aids are accessible online. So we have our Search Archives database, which is dedicated to our archival collections and our archival finding aids. So it's a pretty extensive database, and it's totally open online, so you can access it from anywhere. And that includes all of our finding aids for all of the repositories at the University of Calgary, including the Glenbow Archives. So everything, all of our archival finding aids will be there. And then we also have a really awesome digital collections website, which has a lot of, especially like if you're looking for photographs related to the history of Southern Alberta, or like the University of Calgary, Alberta. And we actually even have like lots of photographs, which kind of are international and like national in scope. So it's a really cool collection. Definitely encourage you to check out that website. You can actually download images, documents from that website directly. And there is also, if you do want to order high resolution reproductions of any image or documentation that you find there, there is an add to cart button on I believe it's on most images that you'll find there. So you can actually order high resolution reproductions directly through that site. And we work extensively with the digital services unit here at the University of Calgary. So if there is any, like, if you do want high resolution reproductions of anything or something scanned, we can make that happen. So, and we also will do like small scale digitization for free, like on our reference team here. We'll generally do about up to 100 pages, like depending on sort of like the fragility and the scope of like what it is that you're looking for. But yeah, we definitely try to make our materials as accessible as possible. So if you can't come and visit, because I know there's probably a lot of people from everywhere here on this call today. So if there is something that you really want access to and say it's you can't make the trip to Calgary, we might be able to find a way to get it to you otherwise. So yeah. And then we also have our website. So you can actually find links to our Search Archives database, digital collections, as well as our library database right on that site. And I've put a QR code here, which actually links directly to that website. So, and on that website, you can find information. So you can find these databases, but you can also find information about visiting us. And actually, Kim's going to talk a little bit of, just going to end off with that information.
Yeah, so we do hope that you can visit us. Though again, we understand that not everyone is able to. Our first interaction with Javier was when he said, you know, I want to see all these things, and it's the height of COVID. It just started, and it was, you know, that was our first introduction. But we made it work, and we were very thrilled when he was able to come out and join us. But we are located on the main campus of the University of Calgary, which is in the northwest quadrant of the city. We're in the main library, and we're up on the second floor. We are open by appointment, and we do say it's by appointment because most of the material is not actually stored on site. As we talked about, it's, you know, many kilometers long. So it doesn't fit on main campus, but it is up at our high density campus in a preservation facility where it is fully temperature controlled, humidity controlled, and just making sure that we can extend the life of these records for as long as possible because we know how important they are to research. So we ask you to give us some notice so we can bring them down onto campus for you. Um, and the flip to that is there's no limit on how long you can access these materials when they're on campus. You can come for an hour, you can come for several months. We'll make sure they're accessible to you. That's not an issue. We just need to know that you're coming so that we can be prepared because being on a university campus, we know that there are some other barriers into getting here. You know, you have to pay to park, you have to come through, and it takes a lot of effort. And we want to make sure your visits are as smooth as possible when you do get here. For most of the year, we are open Monday to Friday from 10 until 4:30. Though in July and August, we switch to our summer hours and we open at 11 instead. We have our information to book um, an appointment with us or to ask us any questions. And we do have a video about, you know, what to expect when you come to the reading room. Um, all of the links, including to the finding aids for the collections I shared, and the links to the website are in the PowerPoint, which Avril has agreed to share after. So you will get those, I know. So if we don't have to scramble to copy them out, they'll be shared. And we do hope that you come and visit us or reach out and ask your questions. We love getting questions. We have a team of 6, and we kind of alternate off answering those questions every day so that, you know, we do get, I think we average between 75 and 200 inquiries a month, depending on the month. So it is a team that will that will talk to you. But it's a great team and we all sit really close together and work really tightly. So if you have any questions, please reach out. If you can visit, please do. And if not, if anyone is in Calgary and they want to come and see the facility just to see it without doing a research inquiry, Lelland and I love to give tours. So if you are in the area, please reach out for that too, and we can kind of show you what it looks like on main campus. Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks so much, ladies. We'll continue now with Javier. Go ahead, please. You're still muted. Can you put on your speaker?
Do you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we do. Thanks.
Okay. So thank you. I'd like to warmly thank April for inviting me to present some of my latest research findings, which I hope you and all the members of the audience would find stimulating and engaging. This research is not a solo research. It has been done in collaboration with historian Roberto Perin. Roberto and I would like to resume the research started and unfortunately not concluded by our friend and colleague, Gabriele Scardelato. I would also like to sincerely thank archivists and librarians at the University of Calgary Archives and Special Collections, Kim, Lelland, Alison, Kathy, and thank all persons that kindly gave me clues and information about the topic of the research, which regards Italian workers from Veneto and Friuli in early 20th century British Columbia and Alberta, particularly in the southern part of the two provinces. So thank to Professor Don Smith, Valeria Sestieri-Lee, Joe Colpitz, Adriana Davis, and friends Petzot Bertolisi family who assisted me in Calgary. I should stress that this research that was financed by Elia Chair is still a work in progress. And so I would very much appreciate your suggestions and comments. Which are the aims of the research? The research aims to highlight the outstanding importance of Italians in the migration history of Western Canada in the area of Crownes Pass in the southern border between the provinces of Alberta and British Columbia. It challenges and downplays the role of Canada's two major metropolitan centers and destinations, Toronto and Montreal, for Italians up to the outbreak of World War I. It aims to continue to, I quote, sow the wasteland, in words of Professor Scardelato, of the Western Canada history of Italian experience. And the reason why we choose this area in between Alberta and British Columbia basically is based on the research done by Roberto Perin, who using the online Ellis Island passenger records found that of the approximately 2,200 immigrants from Friuli and Veneto regions who headed for British Columbia and Alberta in the period 1902-1914, one-third, almost 1,000 persons declared to set off for company town of Michel, Middletown, and Natal, which is in the divide of the two provinces. You can see here in the map the area I'm studying, the area of Crownes Pass, which is 230 kilometers far from Calgary and approximately 30 kilometers north of the city of Fernie, which Adriana knows very well. This image shows you how it looks like this area. Well, actually, just one part of the Elk Valley, the area of Natal. How looks this area in 1920s? The three communities, Michel, Middletown, and Natal, were torn down in 1950s. You see also here some indications that points you on the image are the part of the Elk Valley, Middletown and Michelle in the eastern part of the valley. And these two images as shows how looks the area in 1840s and how is the area right now. So you can see that you don't find any remnants of the original towns. So the three towns, so geographically and physically, the communities that I'm studying, Michelle, Natal, and Middletown, no longer exist. And this is a very strange situation because I had never encountered an experience like this. It's like doing an archaeological research and not only research that involves a migration historian like I am. The methodology of the research involved the study of the migratory experience of Italians in the Crownes Pass area necessarily requires, as a first step, to consult the remarkably rich and unique archives material available at the University of Calgary Archives and special collection that was presented earlier by Kim and Lelland. And this was a task that I completed on site from June, early June to the end of August, early September last year. Of particular importance were also the local studies and collections, which contain interesting information on families, ethnic groups, immigrant societies, etc., materials that were partially collected during my field research in public archives and private collection in Calgary and in the museums of the Crownes Pass area in the same period. The sources of the research are both Canadian and Italian sources, and basically were beside the material at the University of Calgary repositories, Ancestry, so Ellis Island websites, and also some passenger lists that are kept online by Library and Archives Canada, because the first Italians who settled in this area in early 1902 entered the country through the port of St. John in New Brunswick and not from Ellis Island. In the archives and special collections at the University of Calgary, I consulted the Crownes resources and especially the Crownes Pass Coal Company funds, which are a very big repository of 10, almost 11 meters of textual records. I checked the employee records for the Michelle Colliery, so I consulted almost 4,300 employee sheets from 1907, from 1919. There are more employee sheets for the following period up to 1930s approximately. And the same sources, the same information regards also the Coal Creek Colliery, which is a colliery close to Fernie. And I have not enough time to check this material. Kim and Lelland mentioned some other repositories like the Morrissey, Fernie and Michelle Railway Company funds, the Ordine Indipendente Fio d'Italia funds, and British Columbia Railway and Canadian Pacific Railway funds, and many others I was not able to check. And this is very important because allows scholars to approach the problem, in this case, the Italian presence in the southern part of Alberta and British Columbia, from different point of view. From the point of view of the company, I mean the mine company, from the point of view of the CPR company, from the point of view also of the union. And I also did some research at the municipality archives in Friuli and Veneto, from where the majority of Italian workers came from. Some comuni, for example, Dignano, Flaibano, Basiliano, and this material was consulted only partially. So this combination, the consultation of sources, Italian and Canadian sources, allow me to cross-reference information in order to verify the veracity of the data collected. These are two pictures of the boxes that contain the employee sheet I was referring earlier for the Michel Colliery. And this is just one picture of just one employee sheet that contains, as you see, a lot of information, nominal information, the personal, the name of the person who worked for the Crown Espace Coal Company, the nationality, if he was married or single, the home address, the relation to the next of kin, by the name of the company by whom the person was last employed, where it was located, and so many other information, not only for Italian, but for all the people, all the employees of the company, of the Crown Coal Company, which was one of the most important mine and coal company in the British Columbia southern part of the Elk Valley, of the Crown Espace. The Crown Espace Coal Company was established in 1897 to develop the coal resources of the British Columbia side of the Crown Espace. After the Canadian Pacific Railway constructed its line from Lethbridge, Alberta to Kootenay Lake in British Columbia, the Crown Espace experienced growth of incredible proportion due entirely to its major resource, the coal. By 1910, 15 major collieries, each with town sites, were established in the pass adjacent to the CPR line, as, for example, mentioned before, Natal, Michel, and Middletown. Since one of the major determining factors in the exploitation of the past coal fields was the need to provide coke for the struggling smelter industry of the East and West Kootenay in eastern British Columbia, many of these collieries operated coke oven plants. On the British Columbia side of the pass, those companies with coke operation were the Fernie, Morrissey, and Michel plants of the Crown Espace Coal Company and the Osmers mines operated by CPR. To the east of the divide, so to the Albertian part, ovens were built by International Coal and Coke in Coleman, West Canadian collieries in Lille, and by Lake collieries in Passburg. And you can see here where these coke oven plants were located from the two sides of the divide. Here you see the Michel coke oven plant. The first Italian from Friuli who headed to Michel arrived at the port of St. John, as I mentioned before, on April 12, 1902. The group consisted of 9 workers. And here you see the name of this. This first group left from Liverpool, not from Le Havre, from where the next groups left to reach Canada, to reach this area. Since this first group included bricklayers and masons, it is unlikely that they went to work in the mines as miners, but rather in the constructions of beehive covens and the town's infrastructure, for example, houses. Almost certainly, this group of Italians was hired directly by the Canadian authorities and follow an established migrant patterns. This is the two manifests, the one on the left, the manifest of alien passengers arrived at the port of St. John, New Brunswick on April 12, 1902. And you probably can see here Michel as the destination in this part, in the lower part of the manifest, Michel as the destination for this first group, and the names that I show you mentioned. And the other manifest of alien passengers regards the group that arrived on April 6, 1903 through the port of Ellis Island. An important aspect of this experience is how these people access the information. How would be immigrants become aware of job possibilities in a remote Canadian region at the beginning of the 19th century? So much evidence indicates that while initially many thought the Italians reached the area of the Crownes Pass while working in the United States, Northern Italians came directly from Italy engaged by Canadian immigration agents. Later on, both groups reached the area engaged by Italian bosses. You probably have heard about Cordasco or Paretti. And then following familiar and countrymen migration networks. It should be remembered that before the outbreak of World War I, skilled Italian migrants almost always choose their migratory destination based on the job opportunities that the different countries could offer. A specialized bricklayer, for example, did not choose to go to the agricultural colonies of Argentina or Brazil to work as a farmer, but instead where he could continue to carry out his profession. Until World War I, migration flows were completely free. There were no restrictions of any kind. The labor market was worldwide. And this picture shows the town of Michel in early 1900s. It was a big town already well established in early 1900s. These are the two other pictures. For example, in the town of Natal, there was an opera house. This is Newtown, which is the way as Natal it was initially called, and then changed its name to Natal. And in as early as 1903, Italians established the Emanuele Filiberto Duca d'Aosta Mutual Benefit Society in the Elk Valley. And these are the brochure that celebrates the 50th anniversary in 1948. I was talking about the coke ovens. Almost everywhere the coke ovens were turned down, but you still find some remnants of the not of the old coke ovens, but they rebuilt some coke ovens in 1930. So in Coleman, for example, you find these ovens. These ones are in Hosmer in the British Columbia side of the Crownes Pass. Close to the Covens in Osmer, for example, you will find a cemetery. And this is some pictures I took of the cemetery. I managed just to point it out some graves, but the graves were covered by the wood, so it was difficult to enter and to localize some other graves. By 1908, in the McGill Colliery, a total of 486 beehives ovens were in operation. So it was a very high number of coke ovens. In the coal mining town of McGill, according to local employment records from the first decade of the 19th century, a large majority, 961 of the roughly 1,000 Italians employed by Crown's Coal Company gave addresses for their next of kin or for their previous residence as Udine, referring to the province, not to the provincial capital. The professional miners were almost all from the UK, while Italians performed less specialized tasks. So you find also the employee sheets for all these people, also for the mechanics, as they were called, the professional miners.
Javier, Adriana, can you wrap up? I mean, in about 5 minutes?
Yeah, I have probably 2 or 3 more slides. So McGill, unlike any of the 6 other coke plants of the Crownes Pass, produced coke in its beehives for every year until 1956, when the ovens and the entire town were torn down. In 1968, Edgar Kaiser, who was an entrepreneur from an American entrepreneur from California, negotiated a deal to take over a large portion of the Crownes Pass Coal Company property and mines and develop a massive strip mine up above McGill. Kaiser Resources was the first to scale up in a big way open pit strip mining in the Elbe Valley. A huge new preparation plant and large-scale equipment, including a massive dragline, marked the beginning of a new era in coal mining in the Crownes coal field. And so in this period, in between 1950s and 1960s, the population of McGill, Natal, and Middletown was forced to abandon completely the valley. My key research questions are some I wrote down in this slide and regards the main to localize the main destination areas and the occupation sectors of the Friulian and Venetian immigrants who reached the Crownes Pass in early 20th century. What were the main recruitment patterns of Friulian and Venetian immigrants? If there is possible to identify particular migratory networks of chain migration. What was the role of the immigrant recruitment agents? And based on a nominative analysis, if it is possible to establish how many migrant workers have settled permanently in the area of Crownes Pass, how many reach other areas of British Columbia, for example, Fernie, Kelowna, or Alberta, for example, Calgary, or how many of them return to Italy? What was the relationship between the Italian labor force and the rest of the workers present in the area of Crownes Pass? What was the involvement of Italian workers in the local unions? How were the relations between Italian immigrants and the rest of the local community? And probably so many others research questions will come up after your comments. The wonderful thing is that the archives, the records at the University of Calgary library allow us to probably, and I hope so, to respond, to reply to these key research questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, all of you, for your wonderful presentations. I mean, you can see that archives are repositories and they need the human intellect to go in and to make sense of those resources. And I think I first used 1987 when I became executive director of the Alberta Museums Association. I started to use the Glenbow archives for my own research, and basically it's From Sojourners to Citizens, Alberta's Italian History, which of course it straddles Alberta and British Columbia because of the chain migration, and there's a chapter on coal mining in that, but also was involved in creating a website, A Year of the Coal Miner project at the Glenbow Museum, I think 2005, 2006. And we created the website when coal was king. And I did an exhibit titled People of the Coal Mines, the Italian Community. So I'll send linkages to those. But the research needs to continue. One anecdote, in 1953 and 1956, my family drove to Vancouver. And of course, we visited the paesani, including in Michel, Natal. They were still coal mining towns. And as a young child, I was overwhelmed by the blackness of everything. You can imagine the Italian housewives, obsessively bleaching their laundry to get rid of that coal dust, which permeated everything. But it's wonderful to see that this research is continuing, and there's much more to be said and written. And so I'll open the floor to any questions.